I am hesitant to use the word paradigm. Paradigm is one of those painfully overused words, especially in newspapers in our time. But mental illness is really a very misleading paradigm. You know, and people are drawn to it, and people like to speak about themselves in terms of mental health and mental illness, and like to speak about others in terms of mental health and mental illness, because it brings with it the pleasing illusion that the behavior you're exhibiting right now, or the behavior you're exhibiting in the depths of your despair, that's not who you really are. That's just an apparition. That's just an illusion. It's just a misleading set of behaviors created by these short-term circumstances. And once you recover your so-called mental health, right? Once you recover from this imaginary injury, then people will see who you really are. And that's somebody else. Now, there's always a crisis in your life. There's always some short-term excuse for why your mental health is impaired, why you're not acting as yourself, as your true self, as this other person you think you are. But it's so much more useful and it's so much more honest to instead look at how you cope with those crises and say, this is who you really are. And there isn't a contrast between mental health and mental illness. Now, I think you guys are aware, I've made a few different YouTube videos speaking at length and speaking in depth about my old colleague and my old adversary, Erin Janus. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I do not think Erin Janus is insane. I do not think Erin Janus has any of the currently fashionable diagnosable conditions. And if you really look at the history of the concept of being in a manic state, in a fugue state, in the videos that have emerged of her ranting in this way, I would not describe that as mania. I would not describe that as a fugue state. I don't think she's in a dissociative state, so on and so forth. You know how I look at Erin? I look at her behaving this way. And I know how she's behaved. I know she's talked to me directly over many years. And I say, yeah, that's who she really is. That's who she is. And I don't mean that as some kind of negative judgment, like this is who you're always going to be and you can't grow or you can't change. I mean it in the positive sense of that's who she is. Look, maybe you can love her. Maybe you can work with her. Maybe you can be her friend or you're her colleague, whatever your situation is, right? And maybe you can't, but you've got to accept this is who she is. These aren't extreme or aberrant behaviors caused by some kind of short-term illness that she's going to recover from. It's not the case that she's been poisoned. It's not the case that she's hallucinating because of some kind of drug. She doesn't have a concussion. That's who she really is. Now, I used to be married. I'm now happily divorced, let me tell you. I saw this in how other people treated my ex-wife, how they perceived her, and how they refused to let themselves perceive her for who she really is, how they were kind of disregarding the evidence of who she was all the time. And there's always a short-term excuse. I mean, give a good example. My ex-wife got pregnant, had a baby. So I shouldn't say got pregnant. We quite intentionally had a baby. It was a planned and intentional pregnancy. English language is funny that way. Got pregnant is a little bit too vague. Anyway, and I remember how she was behaving right after she had the baby. And there were people who said to me, oh, this is postpartum depression. And like, I can't remember ever fighting with someone about, like, I don't remember it ever really being a conflict or anything. But I'm already saying to people, what do you mean? This is who she really is. Like, she's like this all the time. I'm being real. I'm not complaining. I'm not blaming her. Like, after she had the baby, her behavior, how she acted, how she spoke, it was the same as during the pregnancy and before she had the baby. This is the same person I've known for all these years. We had a long, very close relationship. So we lived together and worked together. Some couples, they spend time apart. But this is someone I really live with and work with very closely for many years. I knew who she was. And I felt like when other people were making these excuses for her, one, they were demonstrating that they don't know who she really is. And two, they were demonstrating why they would never know who she really is. Like, she's showing you again and again who she is, and you're telling yourself, like, oh, this is just a mental health problem. And think about the dichotomy that's there. You're imagining there are two different people. One is the person as she behaves when she's mentally healthy, and the other is the person as she behaves when she's mentally impaired. Now, in the real world, if you get bitten by a venomous snake, many, many types of snake venom will miraculously bring out a totally different character, a totally different set of behaviors in you. When your body is fighting the venom, you're in this sort of altered state of mind. I can say when I was on malaria medication for malaria, it probably changed my personality a little bit. There can be short-term circumstances, don't get me wrong, that really do impair your cognitive function or change your character, change your behavior. There are. I'm not making this as some kind of universal claim that under no circumstances can we talk about a contrast between being ill and being healthy. And, oh, look, I used to live in the tropics. I've lived in Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, and so on. You can have a tropical fever, and just the fever itself, I mean, you'd be amazed. You can hallucinate due to fever. You can really be, in this sense, you can have a mental health problem because you got a fever. So you're not yourself. That's not your real character. That's not your real behavior. Okay, it exists. But what we've done is, as a culture, on a massive scale, we've adopted this unexamined preconception that lets us go around discounting the evidence before our eyes when people are telling us who they really are, when people are showing us who they really are again and again and again. Now, I had a whole bunch of emails from someone named Daniel. I'm just going to use his first name. I assumed he wanted to remain anonymous. And this guy was writing to me on the internet. You don't know what's true and what's false. I have no way to verify this. But he was writing to me claiming to be a personal friend of Erin Janus and a personal supporter. And it sounds like some kind of counselor, like he's somehow trying to help her with his life. I only know what he tells me. And I'm not saying any of this to ridicule him, by the way. This is someone but on the internet, you don't know what's real. So I have no way to verify this. And he says that he really thinks it would be for the best for Erin Janus if I were to delete these videos of her showing how she behaves, how she acts. And again, from my perspective, I don't believe Erin Janus was bitten by a venomous snake. I don't believe she had a fever. And I've known Erin for a lot of years, Daniel. I've mentioned this to you in email. All right, I know Erin. Erin knows me. You can debate whether or not I know her well. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm telling you, this is who Erin really is. Now, he threw a lot of hypotheticals at me. Don't worry, this is brief. I'm not gonna rehash the whole email correspondence. I'm not gonna try to summarize and reiterate everything that was said on both sides. But one of his tactics was to say to me that if the positions were reversed, I would want someone else to delete a video that criticized me in this way or that showed footage of me in this way. Now, totally reasonable tactic for him to use. Like, whether you think of this as Socratic method or something, whatever method you want to call this, Alcibiades method, Thucydides method, why is it always got to be Socratic method? Aren't there some other names from ancient Athens we could use? All right. Whatever pretentious ancient Greek name you want to use this. As a method, that's totally fine. But I think he wasn't willing to really hear my answer because I took that as a sincere question or a sincere challenge. And I answered sincerely. No, I would have valued this kind of criticism so much in my life. I would have valued this. So still today I would. But when I was younger, it could have made an even bigger difference in my life positively. to hear this kind of thing. Like, no, no, no. What you're like, it's fine for you to ask this question. How would I feel if someone criticized me? But I'm saying, no, I crave this kind of criticism, this kind of cross-examination, this kind of challenge. And guys, I was born stupid. Okay. I was born ignorant. All right. What you see on camera right now, I built it up brick by brick over years of hard work. I did not come out of the womb gifted this way. I didn't. And I was born with terrible religious preconceptions about the world that I had to destroy, supernatural preconceptions about the world, and terrible economic and political preconceptions about the world that I had to destroy. So it's not just that I had to learn things, I had to also unlearn things, challenge my assumptions. As a complete coincidence, I went over to Catherine Klein's channel. So if you guys don't know these names, you can understand this video without knowing the names of any of the people. Catherine Klein, I hadn't seen her YouTube channel for a while, and one of my fans sent me a message and said, hey, look, you should criticize what Catherine Klein is doing. I sent Catherine Klein, and I shared this on Patreon. From my perspective, these are 100% positive, 100% friendly messages. But no matter how positive and how friendly you try to be, the reality is I'm communicating to her the point that she's talking about economics, and she very fundamentally does not understand the science of economics, not at a high school level, not at a university 101 textbook level. And I, as nicely as I could, I tried to say to her, look, you're actually taking political hyperbole and propaganda, and you're repeating it like as if it's scientific fact. Like that's what's going on here. I said as nice as I could. Now, someone like Daniel could say to me, it's totally reasonable. Like whether you think of this as Socratic method or not, totally reasonable to challenge me and say, hey, you wouldn't like it if someone said that to you, but you're wrong. I would value that so much. Still today it would have to be in a pretty high level of erudition for someone to challenge me, whether it's on economics or ancient Greece or Rome. But when I was younger, I was as stupid. When I was 17, I was as stupid as every other 17-year-old. When I was 19, I was as stupid as every other 19-year-old. When I was 22, starting to get ahead. But trust me, like I'm cursed with a very accurate memory of how stupid I was. I know the extent to which some of the stupid things Catherine Klein is saying today, I said in the past, the distant past. Some of these misconceptions were inculcated into me, and I was raised with them, and I had to challenge them. And it would have meant so much to me positively if someone else, anyone else, had challenged my ignorance, had challenged my preconception. If they had helped me, even if from an outside perspective, maybe someone would see their helping me as a kind of cruelty. Because some people, they regard all criticism as cruelty, all criticism as having bad intentions. But I don't. I don't see the world that way. I don't see myself that way. So this guy, Daniel, has written to me demanding that I delete those videos of Erin Janus. And he's conceded the point, this is, I think, significant, that my monologue, so me speaking on camera, what I'm saying is actually useful and is helpful, that there isn't something that needs to be censored or deleted there. He just wants me to delete the portions of the video that show Erin herself, shall we say, ranting on camera, okay? But what's so important about that, right? I'm going to tell you several things that are so important about that. The first thing I'm going to tell you that's so important about that is that's who she really is, Daniel. And I think that's very hard for you to accept. And that's why you don't feel comfortable watching that. I'm not saying that to insult you. You want to think who she really is another person, right? It's like if you have an uncle who's an alcoholic, and when he's drunk, you tell yourself, oh, this isn't who he really is. He's really a nice guy. He's really a good guy. He just happens to be drunk all the time. No, that's who he really is. You don't have two separate people there, right? Your uncle chose to get drunk. Now he's drunk. He's a drunk. That's your uncle. That's who he is. You have to accept that, right? So one important factor is just that quality of getting people to face up to this. And look, let me just say, reflecting back on my marriage, reflecting back on the numerous conversations I had with my ex-wife where she was screaming at me and being totally irrational and totally abusive, you know, nothing could have helped her more than if I had videotaped that. Even if only one other person ever saw the videotape, even if just the next day or the next week, I'd sat down with her and played the videotape so she could see it and she could see, hey, this is who I really am. And in her case, started talking with my ex-wife, this is how you treat your husband. This is how you treat a man who has loved you and supported you and has tolerated, endured a huge amount of this kind of abuse for years. And he sacrificed so much for you. And this is how you treat him now. Because I think there's a very real sense in which my ex-wife couldn't remember that or couldn't see it with detachment or couldn't accept those were really her words. Those were really her deeds. This is who she really is. And this is what this is what her husband is really coping with, right? Seeing that on camera for the person themselves, Daniel, you may feel that that's only hurtful. You may feel that that's only harmful. I'm telling you, I don't see it that way. Okay. I have wept on camera. Keep watching my YouTube channel. You can see me break down weeping. Okay. My girlfriend and I have broken down weeping together on camera, actually, at least once, maybe twice. I forget, and, again, it's fine if it's on a kind of Socratic dialogue level of challenging me. It's fine for you to challenge me. It's fine for you to ask me oh, well, wouldn't you feel terrible if there was something like you about this on the internet? But my answer is no. I think that's something that would be really helpful for me. I think it's something that's really helpful for my ex-wife. I think it's helpful for basically everyone I've known. We could go through, frankly, I could talk about my own father here also. My father's now deceased, but it would have been helpful for him to see himself on video and to be, in my father's case, one of the main things to do is confront him with the extent to which he's lying. It's very hard. Someone who's a liar, a habitual liar, to prove their dishonesty to them is very difficult. They'll insist to you. In my father's case, he'd insist, I never said that, or I said this instead. I had my father, one of the times my father broke down weeping, I remember he always insisted to me that he'd never broken down weeping. He never cried in front of me. It's psychotic. What can I tell you? Let me say, that's who he really is. My father didn't have a mental health problem, okay? That's who he really was, He's someone who would lie to your face and say that he'd never broken down weeping. And he really, he lied about everything. And, it would be so valuable with someone like that if you could have videotape and then go back and say, oh, no, but look, this is what you said 5 years ago. This is what you said 5 months ago, whatever it is. And look what you're saying now. Look how different your memory of it is or what you're saying now. Can you see the problem? Can you admit yourself what's going on? Now, we got to scale this up. So far, I've been talking about one-on-one, face-to-face relationships. My relationship with my ex-wife, my relationship with my father. And I don't know anything about your relationship with Erin, Daniel. I just don't know. I assume Daniel wanted this all to be private. So I've been treating it as private. He now tells me that he is, quote, the king of social media, that he is, quote, a multipreneur, that he's hired by big companies. I don't know what he does on the internet, but apparently he says he's a big famous person on social media. That's interesting to hear. So, and he's invited me, he's encouraged me to share all of our email correspondence publicly, which I'm not going to do because I think that could be harmful to you, Daniel. And I think it could be harmful to Erin Janus also, just being real with you. And also, I don't even know what's true and what's false and what you've emailed me. I know what's true in the emails I write. I can share my emails because I know I'm telling the truth. But, no offense, but anyone can write to me on the internet and claim they know Erin Janus. I can't verify it that way. Okay. So far I've just talked about one-on-one relationships, including the unknown relationship between Daniel and Erin. But we're assuming Daniel is some guy who is somehow trying to counsel or help Erin as a friend. Erin Janus is a political leader, and she's been a political leader in several different movements. So, Daniel, I don't know if you're aware of Erin's period of trying to be a political leader in the atheist movement, specifically in the anti-Christian atheist movement. Okay. Not just the vegan movement. We also have this example of the atheist movement. Now, you also have, her career and involvement in music. I'll just digress to say here, I remember talking to Erin years ago, and she told me that she really regards Prince, the recording artist Prince, the artist formerly known as Prince, that she regarded Prince as a kind of hero, as someone she compared herself to, someone she felt she had a lot in common with, you know. And I didn't say this to her at the time, but I thought, wow, I wonder if she's like aware that Prince was this extremely eccentric guy, but, and also Prince was very messed up about religion, by the way. And, but he managed to be successful. He managed to really get ahead in music despite these eccentricities. I remember wondering, did she choose Prince as a kind of role model, as an example of someone who was a successful musician while coping with, eccentricities, shall we say? If you take the view that there aren't two different people called Erin Janus, one of whom is mentally healthy and one of whom is mentally ill, if you just accept all of this behavior as one and the same person and say that's who she really is. Footnote, she can change. If you knew me when I was 18, all right, I had a lot of aberrant behavior at 18. It's disappeared from my life. But that's who I really was. I was an 18-year-old struggling with all the problems I had. And I did progress. I did change. But it wasn't there were two different people there, one of whom was traumatized or bitten by a snake or in some kind of altered state of mind, and one was the real me. It's all the real me. Okay. If you take all this behavior together, all this evidence together, and you accept this is who she really is, you know what? Maybe she can be a successful musician. Maybe she can be a successful artist. And maybe you, Daniel, maybe you can love her and support her in that. And, in a completely non-medical sense of the word crazy, there were a lot of crazy people in the recording music industry. You can be pretty crazy and you can be very eccentric or a little bit crazy, and you can do fine in the music industry. I had one friend, I'm just going to choose to not say who this is, and he was actually getting into radio broadcasting. Long story. He had a history of being a drug addict. And I remember saying to him positively to encourage him, I said, well, you've chosen to go into one of the few industries where a huge percentage of people have a history with cocaine. Like your coworker and your boss, whether or not they call themselves an addict or recovered addict, those people are not afraid of cocaine and they won't be afraid to work with you. So he was getting into radio production, radio broadcasting, whatever you want to say. Didn't last. It's another long story. What actually happened to that guy? But, of course, there are plenty of lines of work where instead being a little bit eccentric, being a little bit crazy, or having a history with cocaine and that guy's good, where that would be a huge insuperable problem. Okay. But whatever you guys are going to do together, you know what I mean? It has to start from that acceptance of this is who you really are. And I think even that notion that you can change, it doesn't make sense without first that acceptance. Erin Janus has been one of the most famous, the most highly funded, the most influential leaders in the vegan movement in the last 10 years, to use a round number. Okay? Now, people have worked with Erin. People have started projects with Erin. People have donated money to support Erin. People have received update emails from her talking about film projects and music projects and political projects, things related to veganism. And by the way, I assume I could repeat all of this again with her involvement in the atheist movement or anti-Christian movement. But that side of it I don't know as much about. But I have had emails from people who tried to work with Erin Janus and tried to support her and were disappointed because of her unreliability and her eccentricity. So, okay. So, Daniel, I know you don't sympathize with my point of view. But within the vegan movement, it is really important that people see Erin for who she really is. And, maybe she can have a wonderful future as a recording artist, as a creative artist, among other. Whether or not she's a musician. I mean, it's not the only role you can have in the music world. Maybe she can have a great career that way. Maybe the world would be a better place if Donald Trump had become a game show host and had just continued working as a game show host. Okay, maybe the world would be a better place if people had known who Donald Trump really was, and he had never made the transition from reality TV game show host to politician. So I'm of the opinion that Donald Trump is morally a bad person. And to say he's eccentric or unreliable, Donald Trump, how crazy is Donald Trump on a scale of 1 to 10? Okay. I don't think it's a problem for Donald Trump to be a game show host, for him to work in entertainment. I'm not trying to get him fired from that job. We're trying to get him banned from being a game show host, right? When Donald Trump made the transition to a role of political leadership, people really needed to know who he was intellectually, ethically, and emotionally. Okay. So, Daniel, I know we've had email back and forth. I know you don't sympathize with my point of view, what I'm saying here. But part of what I do on my YouTube channel is to look at people like Donald Trump and to look at people who are less famous, but within veganism, much more important, like Dr. Greger, Neil Bernard, Dr. Neil Bernard. Those are just 2 examples I'm choosing here. And to say, look, this is who this guy really is. I've found examples of Dr. Greger lying about what is in peer-reviewed medical research. And I take that, it's not to hurt Dr. Greger personally. It's not for some emotional or psychological reason. And I show my audience, look, if he's willing to lie about this, how do you know when this guy's telling the truth? Really think about it. Really think about who this person is. Neil Bernard, same story. I wish I could sit here and tell you I have a ton of intellectual respect for Neil Bernard. I don't. And I've caught him lying. I've caught him being really dishonest. Now, he may tell the truth 9 times out of 10, but I don't know. And when you know someone's unreliable that way, you know someone's dishonest that way, that matters politically. It matters in veganism. And I would say, what if you were part of the Catalan independence movement? You were part of the political movement to make Catalonia into a separate country. These kinds of questions, maybe about people who have fewer views on YouTube than Erin Janus, like maybe people who just have a few thousand views, it may really matter to examine who the political leaders are, who the political voices are, intellectually, ethically, emotionally. Say, look, this is who this person really is. Okay. I've never gotten like a lot of email defending Erin Janus. I've got to tell you, I haven't. I've gotten emails from people saying, hey, thanks. I really appreciate that you stood up and said what you said about Erin after they had their own negative experiences with her. But I know a few people have written to me basically just expressing incredulity that they can't believe this is who Erin really is. They can't take my word for it, or they can't take my critique of her seriously. I understand that. Okay. There's a sense in which I think my ex-wife will never be able to believe how abusive she was toward me because she hasn't seen it on tape. I think my father was never able to believe how much he lied to me because he didn't see it on tape. People lie to themselves about their behavior. People lie to themselves. Well, I think it's very powerful and very meaningful to be able to show someone the recording and say, look, this is what you really said. This is who you really think. They see the they hear the tone of their voice and see the look in their eyes. They see how angry they are. They see whatever the situation might be. Okay. So Daniel, I know it's inconvenient for you. And I don't really even believe you disagree with me. I don't think you perceive me as crazy. This guy's accused me of being a coward. Wrong answer. Then he accuses me of not having any empathy. Wrong answer. There's a lot of empathy in all these videos. I have empathy for all these people. I have empathy for my ex-wife. Terrible human being. I loved her. I supported her for years. Terrible human being. I got empathy for her. My parents are both terrible human beings. I got empathy for them. I do. I know what's wrong with them. I know what's right with them. We can talk about it. With total detachment, I can say this. Doesn't mean I don't have empathy. Right? Daniel, I don't think you actually perceive me as a coward or as a psychopath or someone with no empathy or anything else. I think you don't even disagree with the argument I'm presenting here. I think it's just inconvenient for you. And you're willing to say anything to try to twist my arm into deleting those videos. And I can empathize with your position too. But by the same token, whereby I'm here saying, it would be so meaningful for any of these people themselves to see the videotape. It'd be meaningful for Erin herself to watch the videotape. So on some level, my audience would never believe me if I just gave a description of Erin Janus's behavior. There is no way I could describe this in poetry or prose that would ever get across what can be communicated so effectively, so efficiently in just a few minutes of primary source videotape of this person showing you who they really are. And Daniel, based on your messages, you're not vegan. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But based on what you've written to me, you seem to be telling me that you're not vegan. You don't care about the vegan movement. You probably don't care about politics in Cambodia. You probably don't care about politics in Laos. You probably don't care about politics in Catalonia, a lot of places around the world, right? I just want you to take a moment to imagine veganism as if it's a foreign country. It's a small, poor, powerless foreign country. But the future of veganism means so much to me. I care about it so much, and I actually think it's important for the whole world on the larger scale, and I think it's important for the quality of life and for the meaning of life, for the meaning in life of individual people. Like, I think it matters on the largest scale and on the smallest scale, so profoundly that, yeah, I think it's genuinely worthwhile to come here on camera and say, look, this is who you think James Aspie is, but here's who he really is, okay? This is who you think Freely is. This is who you think Durian Rider is. This is who they really are. Let's face up to who the leaders of this movement have been. People like Malcolm X, they weren't always famous. Other people made them famous. People donated money to support them and invited them to sit on stage. Today, the process is much more transparent on social media. You can see the process whereby someone like Erin Janus is plucked up from obscurity, and someone donated a lot of money to have a billboard campaign. And all across Los Angeles, on huge billboards was Erin Janus's face promoting her YouTube channel and her YouTube video. You tell me the cost estimate of that one advertisement campaign. How Erin Janus rose to a position of power and authority is actually much easier to say than the step-by-step process whereby Malcolm X became a major influential political leader in the United States. Okay. Think about how different life in the United States of America today would be if it had been someone other than Malcolm X who'd played that same role, who'd taken on that same position. I'm not going to digress here into the critique of Malcolm X. If you don't know, it's dark. Mohandas Gandhi, some people call him Mahatma. What if it had been some other lawyer? Jeez. Gandhi was a terrible person. I'm sorry, both regarding a religious sense, who he was as a religious eccentric, ethically, terrible human being, unbelievably awful influence on the political history of India. Both these cases, I know you may not have even read the Wikipedia article, let alone done research into exactly the kind of shocking and horrifying things about these people that are not in the Wikipedia article. Well, even looking at Gandhi's sex life, I'm not condemning him or canceling him just for that reason. That'll start to tell you something. I'll start to show you some of the cracks in the facade. Okay. I know in the short term, Daniel, and you're probably upset by this too, because if your emails are telling the truth, you're involved with Erin, you're actually spending time sitting with her and so on. I empathize. I do. I don't think history is made by abstract ideas. I think that history is made by women and men. And visibly or invisibly, we choose who those people are. We place our trust in them. And the vegan movement has accomplished nothing in the last 5 years because we trusted the wrong people.